Welcome to Clubhouse with a review of the Bandai high-grade Universal Sentry number 2, the 1144 Gyan, which you heard right, is a second kit released after the HG line was rebranded into the HGUC series that we know today. Okay, it's a pretty old kit, and plenty of people will also think, there's a revived version of this already, we don't need this, and that's kinda true. But this is still worth a look because this kit is actually like that fish with legs that you see in evolutionary drawings. It's not quite a 90s kit, but it's not truly an HGUC kit as we recognize it today. Now, Bandai has this new nasty practice of not reprinting older kits once they have a renewed version, so you won't see this kit in stores much anymore as opposed to the revived one. For most people, that's not a big problem, but if you like the Gyan Vulcan from Build Fighters, you must have this kit to make it. Bandai only ever released a valuable pod that modifies this kit, and they never sold the Gyan Vulcan as one single kit outside the 2014 Gunpla Expo limited version of the Gyan, and I don't think it's going to be cheap finding one of those. As another aside, yes, the Gyan kit does mean that there is an entire yellow version of this Gyan inside, and yes, it looked like it was cooked in curry. Oh, and you know what else is kinda dickish? Bandai has the audacity to repackage the valuable pod into this, the Options Parts Set Gunpla number 6 valuable pod. I mean, it's nice they didn't discontinue it, but they still just tell you to combine it with this Gyan. I mean, what the hell, Bandai? You gotta let us get the kit first. Anyway. The classic HGUC Gyan was released in July 1999. The one I have right here was produced in the very first lot, manufactured over 20 years ago, as you can see in this timestamp. That's also why this box is a little beat up. It sold for a price of 800 yen pre-tax, and the box art was done by Masanori Shino, who's a common name you see in many of these older kits. The box measures 25.5 by 19 by 5.5 centimeters, and this is a smaller HGUC boxes that we no longer see today. The side of the box gives us that 002 number, making it a classic among classic HGUC kits, and at this starting point, the box format here mimicked the layout of the old HG boxes from way back in the early 90s, and the other side is exactly the same. The long side here has front and back shots of the Gyan along with some info on the MS. And then the other side has studio shots of all the parts along with some details about the kit, and then it's all legal text. Something special in this box is the tray has an ad printed on it for a special campaign going on at the time called the Gundam 777 Present Campaign. On the right here we have the expected model kit presents, so there's 1,000 clear colored BB Senshi GP01 FBs going out in July 1999 for example. And as luck would have it, Dalmo-ji-san gives us a chance to see that exact model, which he has because he was working on the campaign at Bandai and he mailed this kit to his own home as a test. The kit looks like this on the inside, and the clear plastic seems to have yellowed a little bit after all these years, and the Crazy Man seems to have 2 of these because you can see that he has one of these assembled with all the stickers on. The kit's kinda tacky, but this is a window to have a glimpse back in the world of 1999. On the left side here, we have what looks like metal plates acid etched with Gundam artwork. They call them plates here, but that could be just Bandai embellishing things and they might just be plastic, but I don't know. Down here is the top prize, and this one here is a Sharzaku pure gold plate. I mean, well, it's not gold all the way, and it says here is pure gold coated, but it's still, that's kinda nice. To wrap up, Bandai was a bit of an asshole here, and at the end of the card where you fill in for the campaign, it asks you to choose if you want to enter the draw for the models or for the plates. I mean, what the hell, man? Why isn't this just for all the prizes? What kind of choice is that for a campaign? Anyway, this is a cool little slice of 1999 that came inside this box that I thought we'd have a look together here. Inside the box, the Gyan is spread across 5 runners with this one for the polycaps. And we have to talk about these polycaps because this is why I said this kit was in between 90s kit and HGUC. You see, these were used in the sunset of classic 90s 1144 kits. For example, we can see this exact runner used in the 1998 Endless Waltz Gundam Heavy Arms Custom Kit, which is to say, the Gyan here is an oddball transitional design that is actually a hidden last member dying breed of those 1144 kits before HGUC kits truly became their own thing. We get this small sheet of foil stickers with this black one for the eyes, and then this one here for the mono eye itself, and then this blue one here for the cockpit door, and then that's it. For the instructions, we get more studio shots here on the back which credits Hobby Japan, which is why there's weathering and everything, and there's a color guide on the bottom. The inner pages celebrates this new renewal of the Gyan, with the left page telling you all about the different parts here, and then the right page talking about the Gyan itself in this particular redesign with notes from Katoki Hajime. And in case you didn't know, a lot of the initial HGUC restyling at the start of the line was done with the help of Katoki Hajime, so hardcore fans of this work really should check these older kits out, and at least their designs anyway. The black and white side is all for assembly instructions, as you'd expect. About 70 minutes later, we have the Gyan all put together, and you immediately notice the more classic proportions with the shorter legs and the larger head, which has all but gone away nowadays. Another thing you'll notice is that the Gyan is purple, and well, it's not supposed to be purple. Even in the original animation, we can be charitable and say it's not a pure blue, but it is some kind of blue. The lighter lavender tone is okay, and the Gyan really is like that, but the body really is way off, with no other Gyan kit being like this. You see, here's the Revive and here's the MG kit. It doesn't bother you so much if you look at it all alone, but once you know it's purple, you'll always notice that it is in the wrong color. And no, I've seen the Gyan in many different places, and it's never actually purple. It's that same off kind of blue that we see everywhere else. And you know what else is kind of silly? Even its own box shows it in blue, including all the painted sample pictures on the sides. So you knew about this, or what the hell, Bandai? But onto the better aspects of the color, we get part separations like the circle on the knees here, which very well could have been stickers on an older kit like this. And of course the red and yellow on the shield are all colored, and the clear yellow is properly represented here in plastic, which is fantastic for the time, especially in a kit that's not that expensive like this one. And that clear yellow really isn't the default for the time, where beam sabers were routinely still solid ones molded right into the hand. Something else that's real good for the time is this inner lining in the shoulder armor, which covers up that empty space as it moves along the peg, which is attention to detail that Bandai was pushing for with this young HGUC line. Young being the key word here, because that cover fails if you look at it from this side. I mean, they were still learning at the time. And check out how the elbow polycap is just exposed like this. This is how the classic kits were, and if we bring in the goof flight type from around this time, we see this exact same standard. So they have exposed joints like this just all over the place. That being said, this did raise questions even back in the day, because the gun cannon, who was the first HGUC kit, came before the Gyan and had covers on its joints even though the actual polycaps were the same. Now, I'm not saying this makes the Gyan terrible or anything, but it is the only HGUC kit that I've known that's like this. The edges of the pieces are also quite uneven, which if you mostly buy modern kits, this might be quite an alien thing, but 90s Bandai kits usually did have this bit of a lip at the very edge of the kit, which looks quite unsightly without extra work. The uniformity of the surfaces also falls short compared to modern kits, like the lower legs here that isn't a smooth curved surface, and you see some very small streaks and bumps and blemishes. Remember, you're looking at a kit from the very first batch of kits from this mold, so the mold hasn't aged at all when this kit was made. 90s kits were just like this, and this is very much a remnant of those kits from the 90s. The backpack here is done in gray, and it does have thruster details tucked away at the bottom here. It goes onto the back with a custom rectangular connection, and the backpack is raised off the back like this, and it looks a little strange. The bottom of the legs have some nice details. Well, nice until you see the middle spot here that's probably supposed to be a thruster, but it's just a bare surface like this. It's nice that they tried to make this look good, but out of the box, you have to finish up the work and patch this up with something by yourself. For seams, well, basically there are seams everywhere. There's this big line running right across the shoulders, and then one for the lower legs once again. The thigh tries to mask this a little bit with the line hidden at the apex here, but on the back here it's right in the open. If you hate seams, then this kit is the stuff of nightmares. Here's something else that's kinda curious. Kits from this era, full of seams as they are specifically made to be easy to stand where you can take them apart like this. But the torso here we need to look at. If we take apart the lower skirt, it has this ancient style of turning joint here, which is always annoying for builders and painters. But you might think, well, yeah, that's annoying, but at least we have a turning waist. Nope, this actually doesn't turn, so it's a mystery why it's built like this. Now, of course, if you're a builder, this isn't a super big problem with some trimming and some gluing, but this old Gyan is nonetheless very oddly designed, and it's like nothing else you'll ever see in the HGUC line. we get 3 hands in total with 2 different right holding hands, and then a single left holding hand. These are the 90s style of hands with the pegs on them. If we go back to the classic goof flight type, the hands between these can be swapped and you can see their common lineage. Only the left hand is a normal holding hand with a hole straight down the middle. The right hand actually grips things at an angle, so it isn't just a mirror of the left hand. The other right hand is angled like that as well, but it's also tilted at the peg, and it's easier to see that peg if we compare the 2 right hands. The tilt on these hands are actually really good for holding the sword, and you get a much more natural swing when you pose the kit, so this was a good change that makes this kit much better. The other hand tilts the hand outwards like this, and this is to make a forward thrust of the sword, which is otherwise impossible with the old articulation. What's not so good are these round holes on these hands. For the Gyan's own weapons, these are fine, but the Gyan has occasionally been portrayed with the Gelgoog beam rifle, and on this kit you can't use the gun, which is a small shame. But all is not lost because Bandai actually sort of fixed this later on. On the valuable pod, we get a new pair of hands, and if we take a closer look by borrowing Shizophonics' picture here, we can see that these are newer hands that have a rectangular hole. Now, I don't have the valuable pod, so I can't test these for you right now, but if I ever get it, you can go watch the review and see if they made it specifically so the Gyan can hold a gun. For the weapons, let's first look at the Gyan's signature sword. It's a straight handle with a simple handguard right here, and it looks the same from every single angle, so there's nothing particularly complex about this weapon. There's this clear yellow beam piece, which is unusual in how the bottom doesn't actually have a peg or anything, and the whole thing plugs right into the hole, and it's oddly satisfying to do this. The beam blade is in its unique shape for this weapon with a slightly wider diameter towards the top, and it is a custom piece, so if you lose this, you cannot easily replace it. But the good news here is the base of this is a 3mm hole, so you can plug a lot of other stuff into the hole if you want. The other weapon we get, of course, is the Gyan's round shield, which is wonderfully sculpted, like with the needle missiles here, each having their own little sunken-in trench. And the mines here, while they aren't supposed to be red like this, they are parts separated from the yellow, so builders can paint this part much more easily. On the back, we see a beautiful mold of the frame supporting the thick shield, which is very Katoki-esque. There's a moving arm right here, but it's better to look at this with the shield equipped, which we can do by having the Gyan grip the handle, and then the brace on top will clip into the forearm. The connector looks great on top of staying in really well, but it's really spoiled by this loose polycap on top, which lets the shield swing loose like this, so it's best to add some super glue to thicken up that joint. That arm we saw just now actually allows the shield to swing forward like this to face forward so that it can fire the needle missiles and the mines. And it's quite an ambitious redesign for the Gyan, even though now we have 2 very loose polycaps and it doesn't stay in place much at all. So this looks great in theory, but out of the box it really does have some problems. And guess what? We have one more extra weapon in the box, which are these mines, which are actually called hide bombs, and we get 4 of them. They're not supposed to be yellow, of course, but hey, on the Revive kit we don't get any of these at all, so here at least we have them. They have holes on the bottom to save on some plastic, but as luck would have it, they do fit 3mm pegs just fine, so you can pose them with modern display arms. These little guys turn out to be a wonderful surprise to get in this kit, even for the modern day. Onto the articulation. Starting from the top, the head is on a ball joint and has quite a lot of room for adjusting its angle like this. It can turn a full circle if you avoid the sides a little bit. The shoulder is on a static peg, so it doesn't swing out in any way. The entire arm can rotate a full circle, of course, with nothing getting in the way. They swing outwards 90 degrees. And the bicep here is merged with the shoulder, so the turn is done here at the elbow like a classic kit. The elbow itself has a 90-degree bend. The hands can only rotate along the peg. The waist doesn't dip forward at all or back, as we've already seen. It doesn't have a joint, but it can actually turn side to side just a little bit. What we do get is to swing on the leg joints themselves, which is something Bandai did with earlier HGUC Zeon mobile suits to give you something similar to a waist turn. The legs can be adjusted on their ball joint like this. They drop the peg of the leg really low like this, so you can have at least a 45-degree kick forward, which is not as bad as it could be. They kick backwards this much as well. The double jointed knees gets you a bend of a little bit over 90 degrees. The feet can move a little bit on its ball joint, but not really a lot. The Gyan moves about as much as you'd expect from any old HGUC kit. It's not amazing, but none of it is a shocking or a nasty surprise, so we are looking at 90-degree bends in most places. These older kits don't have forward and backward dips on the waist, which hurts opposing the most. They're all like this on Zeon mobile suits, but it feels like the Gyan didn't have to have that problem since they already split it at the waist, so why not just have it spin more? TLDR, it can do poses, though it can't do anything crazy because of its age. For scale accuracy, the scale ruler puts this guy at close to 22 meters tall, even if we don't count the stock at the top of the head, which is an entire 10% over the supposed 20 meters. And for size comparisons, here's a lower end benchmark, the entry grade RX-78. And here's the upper end benchmark, the entry grade new Gundam. When you know the Gyan is taller than it should be, you really see it here. At 20 meters, it should be a little bit taller than the 18 meters RX-78, but not this much. So the whole thing is pretty huge compared to the RX-78. Of course, it's still kinda short next to the new Gundam, but you can see how it's strangely in the middle here and it seems a little bit larger than it should be. With all that said, here's a Hobby Clubhouse 3-point verdict on the HGUC number 2 1144 Gyan. Number 1, it's a piece of HGUC history. The Gyan is very interesting for people who like to experience Bandai models as the craft evolved through the years. And here we have a kit with the HGUC's push towards color separation, but does it on top of still 90s construction. You can see that the first step Bandai took is with the colors and the looks out of the box with things like the circle details on the knees and the color of the shield, and that beautiful connection clamp on the shield. They don't reprint this kit much anymore, so if you like Gundam model history, then pick one of these up if you ever see one. And number 2, a good Gyan is still a Gyan. I seem to say this a lot with older MSs. The Gyan is very esoteric as a mobile suit. I mean, unique sure, but you rarely see it described as handsome. I guess it makes sense. I mean, Mikube really has some questionable tastes. The designer tried to make the best Gyan they could in 1999, but it's still a Gyan. And I suspect for many people, that already does decide whether or not you'll buy this kit or not, regardless of how good or bad this kit turned out to be. So I think that being a Gyan is more of a limitation to this kit than any obsolete engineering ever could be. And number 3, the Revive kit is better. To continue from the previous point, there's really no getting around that the engineering here really is obsolete. I've found compelling reasons to praise the goof, and I told you that the old gun cannon actually is something you really want. And this kit here, the Gyan, isn't terrible, but objectively there's really no strong reason to pick this kit up over the Revive kit outside of the first point here in the conclusion, or if you really must have a Gyan Vulcan no matter what. If you like the Gyan, you really want to do Gyan stuff with it, then the Revive kit is a lot better at being a Gyan. So while this Gyan has its place in history, it is unique for being a purple colored Gyan, it really isn't a suitable purchase for most people, I'm afraid. So that's a review of the classic HGUC Gyan. A bit of a museum piece in HGUC history. It's old and janky and flawed as it is, and it's something Mikube would absolutely love. Thank you so much for watching. Come look us up on social media with updates on upcoming videos and sneak peeks at future projects, links are in the description below. Or hang out here some more with one of these other videos. One of these will probably be the Revive kit if I ever get one, or maybe the Valuable Pod. But before you go, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to be notified of new videos from Hobby Clubhouse, and I'll see you next time.